Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. As we all know, tomorrow is Ram Navami, the appearance day of Lord Ram. So what we are going to do is do reading from Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam. In Canto 9, Chapter 10 describes the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. As we all know, Ramayana itself has got 24,000 verses, which is a lot of verses to go through. But Prabhupada has been very kind to us, and he has put the essence of Ramayana in some chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're going to read first from chapter 10 of the Canto 9 of Bhagavatam. Canto 9 is Liberation. And let us begin the chapter 10. What I will do is I'll be reading the introduction of the chapter 10 and then the translation and the purports of the verses. I won't be reading the Sanskrit verses itself. So let's begin. Chapter 10, Canto 9, the Pastimes of the Lord Ram, Supreme Lord Ramchandra. This 10th chapter describes how Lord Ramchandra appeared in the dynasty of Maharaj Khatwanga. It also describes the Lord's activities, telling how he killed Ravan and returned to Ayodhya, the capital of his kingdom. The son of Maharaj Khatwang was Dirghabahu, and his son was Raghu. The son of Raghu was Aja. The son of Aja was Dashrath, and the son of Dashrath was Lord Ramchandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord descended into this world in his full quadruple expansion as Lord Ramchandra, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, great sages like Valmiki, who were actually in knowledge of the absolute truth, described his transcendental pastimes. Srila Shukadev Goswami describes these pastimes in brief. Lord Ramchandra went with Vishwamitra and killed Rakshasas like Marich. After breaking the stout and strong bow known as Haradhanu, the Lord married Mother Sita and cut down the prestige of Parshuram. To obey the order of his father, he entered the forest accompanied by Lakshman and Sita. There he cut off the nose of Shurpnakha and killed the associates of Ravan, headed by Khar and Dushan. Ravan's kidnapping of Sitadevi was the beginning of this demon's misfortune. When Marich assumed the form of a golden deer, Lord Ramchandra went to bring the deer to please Sitadevi, but in the meantime, Ravan took advantage of the Lord's absence to kidnap her. When Sitadevi was kidnapped, Lord Ramchandra, accompanied by Lakshman, searched for her throughout the forest. In the course of this search, they met Jatayu. Then the Lord killed the demon Kabandha and the commander Vali and established a friendly relationship with Sugriv. After organizing the military strength of the monkeys and going with them to the shore of the sea, the Lord awaited the arrival of Samudra, the ocean personified. But when Samudra did not come, the Lord, the master of Samudra, became angry. Then Samudra came to the Lord with great haste and surrendered to him. Wanting to help him in every way, the Lord then attempted to bridge the ocean, and with the help of advice from Vibhishan, he attacked Ravan's capital, Lanka. Previously, Hanuman, the eternal servant of the Lord, had set fire to Lanka, and now with the help of Lakshman, the forces of Lord Ramchandra killed all the Rakshas soldiers. Then Lord Ramchandra personally killed Ravan. Mandodari and other wives lamented for Ravan, and in accordance with Lord Ramchandra's order, Vibhishan performed the funeral ceremonies for all the dead in the family. Lord Ramchandra then gave Vibhishan the right to rule the Lanka and also granted him a long duration of life. The Lord delivered Sitadevi from the Ashok forest and carried her in a flower airplane to his capital Ayodhya, where he was received by his brother Bharat. When Lord Ramchandra entered Ayodhya, Bharat brought his wooden shoes, Vibhishan and Sugriv held a whisk and a fan, Hanuman carried an umbrella, Shatrughan carried the Lord's bow and 2 quivers, and Sita Devi carried a water pot containing water from the holy places. Angad carried a sword, and Jambavan the Rakshas Raj, he carried a shield. After Lord Ramchandra, accompanied by Lord Lakshman and Mother Sita Devi, met all his relatives, the great sage Vashishta enthroned him as king. The chapter ends with a short description of Lord Ramchandra's rule in Ayodhya. Text 1. Shukadev Goswami said, the son of Maharaj Khatwang was Dirghabahu and his son was the celebrated Maharaj Raghu. From Maharaj Raghu came Aja, and from Aja was born the great personality Maharaj Dashrath. Text 2. Being prayed for by the demigods, the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth himself, directly appeared with his expansion and expansions of the expansion. The holy names were Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in 4 forms as the sons of Maharaj Dashrath. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Lord Ramchandra and his brothers Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughan are all Vishnu Tattva and not Jiva Tattva. All of us humans, we are Jiva Tattvas. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands into many forms, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Although they are one and the same, Vishnu Tattva has many forms and incarnations. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.39, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan. The Lord is situated in many forms such as Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, and these forms may exist in any part of his creation. All these forms exist permanently, eternally as individual personalities of Godhead, and they resemble many candles, all equally powerful. Lord Ramchandra, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, who being Vishnu Tattva are all equally powerful, became the sons of Maharaj Dashrath in response to prayers by the demigods. Verse 3. O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramchandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramchandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. Purport of this verse. Modern Rakshasas posing as educationally advanced merely because they have doctorates have tried to prove that Lord Ramchandra is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead but an ordinary person. But those who are learned and spiritually advanced will never accept such notions. They will accept the descriptions of Lord Ramchandra and his activities only as presented by Tattvadarshis, those who know the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34, the Supreme Personality of Godhead advises, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya updekshayanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Unless one is Tattvadarshi in complete knowledge of the absolute truth, one cannot describe the activities of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, although there are many so-called Ramayans or histories of Lord Ramchandra's activities, Some of them are not actually authoritative. Sometimes Lord Ramchandra's activities are described in terms of one's own imaginations, speculations, or material sentiments. But the characteristics of Lord Ramchandra should not be handled as something imaginary. While describing the history of Lord Ramchandra, Shukadev Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit, "You have already heard about the activities of Lord Ramchandra. Apparently, therefore, 5,000 years ago, there were many Ramayans or histories of Lord Ramchandra's activities. And there are many still. But we must select only those books written by Tattvadarshis, Jnaninas Tattvadarshinaha, not the books of so-called scholars who claim knowledge only on the basis of a doctorate." This is a warning by Shukadev Goswami, Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhi. Although the Ramayana composed by Valmiki is a huge literature, the same activities are summarized here by Shukadev Goswami in few verses. Verse 4. Translation: To keep the promise of his father intact, Lord Ramchandra immediately gave up the position of king and, accompanied by his wife Mother Sita, wandered from one forest to another on his lotus feet, which were so delicate that they were unable to bear even the touch of Sita's palms. The Lord was also accompanied by Hanuman or by another monkey. Sugriv, king of the monkeys, and by his own younger brother, Lord Lakshman, both of whom gave him relief from the fatigue of wandering in the forest, having cut off the nose and ears of Shurpanakha, thus disfiguring her. The Lord was separated from Mother Sita. He therefore became angry, moving his eyebrows and thus frightening the ocean, who then allowed the Lord to construct a bridge to cross the ocean. Subsequently, the Lord entered the kingdom of Ravan to kill him like a fire devouring a forest. May that Supreme Lord Ramchandra give us all protection. Some of the texts have not got any purports because the translation is quite comprehensive enough. This is how Prabhupada has done. Now verse 5, translation: In the arena of the sacrifice performed by Vishwamitra, Lord Ramchandra, the king of Ayodhya, killed many demons, Rakshasas and uncivilized men who wandered at night in the mode of darkness. May Lord Ramchandra, who killed these demons in the presence of Lakshman, be kind enough to give us protection. Verses 6 and 7, translation: O king, the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra were wonderful like those of a baby elephant. In the assembly where Mother Sita was to choose her husband in the midst of heroes of this world, he broke the bow belonging to Lord Shiva. This bow was so heavy that it was carried by 300 men. But Lord Ramchandra bent and strung it and broke it in the middle, just as a baby elephant breaks a stick of sugarcane. Thus the Lord achieved the hand of Mother Sita, who was equally as endowed with transcendental qualities of form, beauty, behavior, age, and nature. Indeed, she was the goddess of fortune who constantly rests on the chest of the Lord. While returning from Sita's home after gaining her at the assembly of competitors, Lord Ramchandra met Parshuram. Although Parshuram was very proud, having rid the earth of the royal order 21 times, he was defeated by the Lord, who appeared to be a Kshatriya of the royal order. Verse 8, translation: Carrying out the order of his father, who was bound by a promise to his wife, Lord Ramchandra left behind his kingdom, opulence, friends, well-wishers, residents, and everything else, just as a liberated soul gives up his life and went to the forest with Sita. Purport: Maharaj Dashrath had 3 wives. One of them, Kaikeyi, served him very pleasingly, and he therefore wanted to give a benediction. Kaikeyi, however, said that she would ask for the benediction when it was necessary. At the time of the coronation of Prince Ramchandra, Kaikeyi requested her husband to enthrone her son Bharat and send Ramchandra to the forest. Maharaj Dashrath, being bound by his promise, ordered Ramchandra to go to the forest, according to the dictation of his beloved. And the Lord, as an obedient son, accepted the order immediately. He left everything without hesitation, just as liberated soul or great yogi gives up his life without material attraction. Verse 9. While wandering in the forest, where he accepted a life of hardship, carrying his invincible bow and arrows in his hand, Lord Ramchandra deformed Ravan's sister, who was polluted with lusty desires, by cutting off her nose and ears. He also killed her 14,000 Rakshasa friends, headed by Khara, Trishira and Dushan. Verse 10 translation. O King Parikshit, when Ravan, who had 10 heads on his shoulders, heard about the beautiful and attractive features of Sita, his mind was agitated by lusty desires, and he went to kidnap her. To distract Lord Ramchandra from his ashram, Ravan sent Marich in the form of golden deer, and when Lord Ramchandra saw that wonderful deer, he left his residence and followed it and finally killed it with sharp arrow, just as Lord Shiva killed Daksha. Verse 11 translation. When Ramchandra entered the forest and Lakshman was also absent, the worst of the Rakshasas, Ravan, kidnapped Sitadevi, the daughter of the king of Videha, just as a tiger seizes unprotected sheep when the shepherd is absent. Then Lord Ramchandra wandered in the forest with his brother Lakshman, as if very much distressed due to separation from his wife. Thus he showed by his personal example the condition of a person attached to women. Purport of this verse. In this verse, the words Stri Sanginam Gatim Iti indicate that the condition of a person attached to women was shown by the Lord himself. According to the moral instructions, Grihe Narim Vivarjayet, when one goes on a tour, one should not bring his wife. Formerly, men used to travel without conveyances, but still, as far as possible, when one leaves home, one should not take his wife with him, especially if one is in such a condition as Lord Ramchandra when banished by the order of his father. Whether in the forest or at home, if one is attached to women, this attachment is always troublesome, as shown by the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his personal example. Of course, this is the material side of Stri Sangi, but the situation of Lord Ramchandra is spiritual, for he does not belong to the material world. Narayanaha Paro Avyaktat. Narayan is beyond the material creation because he is the creator of the material world. He is not subject to the conditions of the material world. The separation of Lord Ramchandra from Sita is spiritually understood as Vipralambha, which is an activity of the Hladini potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, belonging to the Shringar Rasa, the mellow of conjugal love in the spiritual world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has all the dealings of love, displaying the symptoms called Sattvic, Sanchari, Vilap, Murcha and Unmad. Thus, when Lord Ramchandra was separated from Sita, all these spiritual symptoms were manifested. The Lord is neither impersonal nor impotent, rather he is Satchidanand Vigraha, the eternal form of knowledge and bliss. Thus he has all the symptoms of spiritual bliss. Feeling separation from one's beloved is also an item of spiritual bliss. As explained by Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti. The dealings of love between Radha and Krishna are displayed as the pleasure potency of the Lord. The Lord is the original source of all pleasure, the reservoir of all pleasure. Lord Ramchandra therefore manifested the truth both spiritually and materially. Materially, those who are attached to women suffer, but spiritually, when there are feelings of separation between the Lord and his pleasure potency, the spiritual bliss of the Lord increases. This is further explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 11. Avjananti mam mudha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajnananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. One who does not know the spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead thinks of the Lord as an ordinary human being, but the Lord's mind, intelligence, and senses can never be affected by material conditions. This fact is further explained in the Skanda Puran as quoted by Madhvacharya. Nitya Purna Sukha Jnana Swarupo Asau Yato Vibhu Ato Asya Rama Iti Akhya Tasya Dukham Kuto Anva Api Tathapi Lok Shikshartham Adukho Dukha Vartivat Antarhitam Loka Drishtyas Sitam Asit Smaran Eva. Jnana Panartham Punar Nitya Sambandha Swatmanah Shriyah Ayodhya Vinirgachan Sarvalokasya Cheshwarah Pratyaksham Tu Shriya Sardham Jagamana Man Manatir Avyayah Nakshatra Masa Gantim Tredasa Sahasrakam Brahmaloka Samanchakre Samastam Kshiti Mandalam Ramo Rama Iti Sarvesham Mamayo Lita. So it was actually impossible for Ravan to take away Sita. The form of Sita taken by Ravan was an illusory representation of Mother Sita. That is the Maya Sita. When Sita was tested in the fire, this Maya Sita was burnt and real Sita came out of the fire. A further understanding to be derived from this example is that a woman, however powerful she may be in the material world, must be given protection. For as soon as she is unprotected, she will be exploited by Rakshasas like Ravan. Here the word Vaideha Raja Duhitari indicate that before Mother Sita was married to Lord Ramchandra, she was protected by her father Vaideha Raj, and when she was married, she was protected by her husband. Therefore, the conclusion is that a woman should always be protected. According to the Vedic rule, there is no scope for a woman's being independent, asamaksham, for a woman cannot protect herself independently. Verse 12, translation. Lord Ramchandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, had assumed the form of a human being. Thus he performed the funeral ceremony of Jatayu, who was killed by Ravan. The Lord then killed the demon named Kabandha, and after making friends with the monkey chiefs, killing Vali and arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sita, he went to the beach of the ocean. Purport: when Ravan kidnapped Sita, he was obstructed on the way by Jatayu, a large bird, but the powerful Ravan defeated Jatayu in the fight and cut his wing. When Ramchandra was searching for Sita, he found Jatayu almost dead, and he was informed that Sita has been carried off by Ravan. When Jatayu died, Lord Ramchandra did the duty of a son by performing his funeral ceremony, and then he made friends with the monkeys to deliver Sitadevi. Verse 13, translation. After reaching the beach, Lord Ramchandra fasted for 3 days, awaiting the arrival of ocean personified. When the ocean did not come, the Lord exhibited his pastimes of anger, and simply by glancing over the ocean, all the living entities within it, including the crocodiles and sharks, were agitated by fear. Then the personified ocean fearfully approached Lord Ramchandra, taking all paraphernalia to worship him. Falling at the Lord's lotus feet, the personified ocean spoke as follows. Verse 14, of all pervading Supreme Person, we are dull-minded and did not understand who you are, but now we understand that you are the Supreme Person, the Master of the entire universe, the unchanging and original personality of Godhead. The demigods are infatuated with the mode of goodness, the Prajapatis with the mode of passion, and the Lord of Ghosts with the mode of ignorance. But you are the Master of all all these qualities. Purport. The word Jadadhiya refers to intelligence like of an animal. A person with such intelligence cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without being beaten, an animal cannot understand the purpose of a man. Similarly, those who are dull-minded cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but when punished severely by the modes of material nature, they begin to understand him. As a Hindi poet has said, Dukh se sab hari bhaje, sukh se bhaje koi. Sukh se agar hari bhaje, dukh kathan se haya. When one is distressed, he goes to the church or temple to worship the Lord, but when opulent, he forgets the Lord. Therefore, punishment by the Lord through material nature is necessary in human society, for without it, men forget the supremacy of the Lord due to their dull, blunt intelligence. So this is a rare mention of a Hindi poet's poetry in the purports. Usually it's always reference from some shastras by Prabhupada in the purports, of whether it's Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or other shastras, which is very nice to see. Verse 15. My Lord, you may use my water as you like. Indeed, you may cross it and go to the abode of Ravan. This is Samudra, or the ocean, speaking to Lord Ram, who is the great source of disturbance and crying for the three worlds. He is the son of Vishrava, but is condemned like urine. Please go and kill him and thus regain your wife Sitadevi, O great hero. Although my water presents no impediment to your going to Lanka, please construct a bridge over it to spread your transcendental fame. Upon seeing this wonderfully uncommon deed of your lordship, all the great heroes and kings in future will glorify you. Purport. It is said that a sun and urine emanate from the same source, the genitals. When a son is devotee or a great learned person, the seminal discharge for begetting a son is successful. But if the son is unqualified and brings no glory to his family, he is no better than urine. Here Ravan is compared to urine because he was a cause of disturbances to the three worlds. Thus the ocean personified wanted him killed by Lord Ramchandra. One feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramchandra, is omnipotence. The Lord can act without regard to material impediments or inconveniences, but to prove that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was not merely advertised as Godhead or elected by popular vote, he constructed a wonderful bridge over the ocean. Nowadays, it has become fashionable to create some artificial god who performs no uncommon activities. A little magic will bewilder a foolish person into selecting an artificial god because he does not understand how powerful God is. Lord Ramchandra, however, constructed a bridge over the water with stone by making the stone float. This is proof of God's uncommonly wonderful power. Why should someone be accepted as God without displaying extraordinary potency by doing some never to be done by any common man? We accept Lord Ramchandra as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he constructed this bridge, and we accept Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he lifted Govardhan Hill when he was only 7 years old. We should not accept any rascal as God or an incarnation of God, for God displays special features in his various activities. Therefore, the Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti. So Arjuna, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, takes his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjun. The activities of the Lord are not common. They are all transcendentally wonderful and not able to be performed by any other living being. The symptoms of the Lord activities are all mentioned in the Shastras, and after one understands them, one can accept the Lord as He is. Verse 16, Shukadev Goswami said, after constructing a bridge over the ocean by throwing into the water the peaks of mountains whose trees and other vegetation had been shaken by the hands of great monkeys, Lord Ramchandra went to Lanka to release Sitadevi from the clutches of Ravan. With the direction and help of Vibhishan, Ravan's brother, the Lord, along with the monkey soldiers headed by Sugriv, Neel and Hanuman, entered Ravan's kingdom Lanka, which had previously been burnt by Hanuman. Purport: great mountain peaks covered with trees and plants were thrown into the sea by the monkey soldiers and began to float by the supreme will of the Lord. By the supreme will of the Lord, many great planets float weightlessly in space like swabs of cotton. If this is possible, why should great mountain peaks not be able to float on water? This is the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can do anything and everything. He likes because he is not under the control. He can do anything and everything he likes because he is not under the control of the material nature. Indeed, material nature is controlled by him. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Only under his direction goes prakriti or material nature work. Similar information is given in the Brahma Samhita 5.52. Yasya gnya brahmati sambrita kala chakro govindam adi purusham tam aham bhajami. Describing how material nature works, the Brahma Samhita says that the sun moves as desired by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, for Lord Ramchandra to construct the bridge over the Indian Ocean with the help of monkey soldiers who threw great mountain peaks into the water is not at all wonderful. It is wonderful only in the sense that it has kept the name and fame of Lord Ramchandra eternally celebrated. Verse 17. After entering Lanka, the monkey soldiers led by chiefs like Sugriv, Neel and Hanuman occupied all the sporting houses, granaries, treasuries, palace doorways, city gates, assembly houses, palace frontages, and even the resting houses of the pigeons. When the city's crossroads, platforms, flags, and golden water pots on its domes were all destroyed, the entire city of Lanka appeared like a river distributed by a herd of elephants. Verse 18. When Ravan, the master of the Rakshasas, saw the disturbances created by the monkey soldiers, he called for Nikumbh, Kumbh, Dhumraksha, Durmukha, Surantaka, Narantaka and other Rakshasas and also his son Indrajit. Thereafter he called for Prahasta, Atikai, Vikampan and finally Kumbhakaran. Then he induced all his followers to fight against the enemies. Verse 19. Lord Ramchandra, surrounded by Lakshman and monkey soldiers like Sugriv, Hanuman, Gandhamad, Neel, Angad, Jambavan and Panasa, attacked the soldiers of the Rakshasas who were fully equipped with the various invincible weapons like swords, lances, bows, prasas, rishtis, shakti arrows, khadags and tomaras. Verse 20. Angad and the other commanders of the soldiers of Ramchandra faced the elephants, infantry, horses and chariots of the enemy and hurled against them big trees, mountain peaks, clubs and arrows. Thus the soldiers of Lord Ramchandra killed Ravan's soldiers, who had lost all good fortune because Ravan had been condemned by the anger of Mother Sita. Purport: by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, the soldiers Lord Ramchandra recruited in the jungle were all monkeys and did not have proper equipment with which to fight the soldiers of Ravan, for Ravan's soldiers were equipped with weapons of modern warfare, whereas the monkeys could only throw stones, mountain peaks and trees. It was only Lord Ramchandra and Lakshman who shot some arrows, but because the soldiers of Ravan were condemned by the curse of Mother Sita, the monkeys were able to kill them simply by throwing stones and trees. There are two kinds of strength, Deva and Purushakar. Deva refers to the strength achieved from the transcendence, and Purushakar refers to the strength organized by one's own intelligence and power. Transcendental power is always superior to the power of the materialist. Depending upon the mercy of the Lord, one must fight one's enemy, even though one may not be equipped with modern weapons. Therefore, Krishna instructed Arjun, Mam Anusmara Yudhya Cha, think of me and fight. We should fight our enemy to the best of our ability, but for victory we must depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 21. Thereafter, when Ravan, the king of the Rakshasas, observed that his soldiers had been lost, he was extremely angry. Thus he mounted his airplane, which was decorated with flowers, and proceeded toward Lord Ramchandra, who sat on the effulgent chariot brought by Matali, the chariot driver of Indra. Then Ravan struck Lord Ramchandra with sharp arrows. Verse 22. Lord Ramchandra said to Ravan, you are the most abominable of the man-eaters. Indeed, you are like their stool. You resemble a dog, for as a dog steals eatables from the kitchen in the absence of the householders. In my absence, you kidnapped my wife Sitadevi. Therefore, as Yamraj punishes sinful men, I shall also punish you. You are most abominable, sinful, and shameless. Today, therefore, I, whose attempt never fails, shall punish you. Purport: Nurture Devat Param Balam. No one can surpass the strength of the transcendence. Ravan was so sinful and shameless that he did not know what the result would be of kidnapping Mother Sita. The pleasure potency of Ramchandra. So we should know that Ram and Sita are one, just like Radha and Krishna are one. Lord Sita Devi is the internal potency of Lord Ram. She's the goddess of fortune herself. So this is the disqualification of the Rakshasas, like Prabhupada says in the purport, that he kidnapped Mother Sita, the internal potency of Ramchandra. Asatyam apratishtham te jagad ahur anishwaram. The Rakshasas are unaware that the Supreme Lord is the ruler of the creation. They think that everything has come about by chance or accident and that there is no ruler, king or controller. Therefore, the Rakshasas act independently as they like, going even far as to kidnap the goddess of fortune. This policy of Ravan's is extremely dangerous for the materialist. Indeed, it brings ruin to this materialistic civilization. Nonetheless, because atheists are Rakshasas, they dare to do things that are most abominable, and thus they are punished without fail. Religion consists of the orders of the Supreme Lord, and one who carries out these orders is religious. One who fails to carry out the Lord's orders is irreligious, and he has to be punished. Verse 23. After thus rebuking Ravan, Lord Ramchandra fixed an arrow to his bow aimed at Ravan and released the arrow, which pierced Ravan's heart like a thunderbolt. Upon seeing this, Ravan's followers raised a tumultuous sound, crying, Alas, alas, what has happened? What has happened? As Ravan, vomiting blood from his 10 mouths, fell from his airplane. Just as a pious man falls to earth from the heavenly planets when the results of his pious activities are exhausted. Purport to verse 23, in Bhagavad Gita, verse 9.21, it is said, Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. When the results of their pious activities are exhausted, those who enjoyed in the heavenly planets fall again to the earth. The fruitive activities of this material world are such that whether one acts piously or impiously, one must remain within the material world according to different conditions, for neither pious nor impious actions can relieve one from Maya's clutches of repeated birth and death. Somehow or other, Ravan was raised to an exalted position as the king of a great kingdom with material opulences. But because of his sinful act of kidnapping Mother Sita, all the results of his pious activities were destroyed. If one offends an exalted personality, especially the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one certainly becomes most abominable. Bereft of the results of pious activities, one must fall down like Ravan and other demons. It is therefore advised that one transcend both pious and impious activities and remain in the pure state of freedom from all designations. Sarvopati vinir muktam tat paratvena nirmalam. When one is fixed in devotional service, he is above the material platform. On the material platform, there are higher and lower positions, but when one is above the material platform, he is always fixed in spiritual position. Sagunan samatitaya samatit yetan brahma bhuya kalpate. Ravan or those like him may be very powerful and opulent in this material world, but theirs is not a secure position, because after all, they are bound by the results of their karma. Karmana deva netrena. We should not forget that we are completely dependent on the laws of nature. Prakritehe kriyamanani gunehe karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. This is from Bhagavad Gita, verse 27, chapter 3, translated as: the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the nature. So one should not be proud of one's exalted position and act as Ravan, thinking oneself independent of material nature's laws. Verse 24. Thereafter all the women whose husbands had fallen in the battle headed by Mandodari, the wife of Ravan, came out of Lanka, continuously crying. They approached the dead bodies of Ravan and other Rakshasas. Verse 25. Striking their breasts in affliction because of their husbands had been killed by the arrows of Lakshman, the women embraced their respective husbands and cried piteously in voices appealing to everyone. Verse 26. O my Lord, O Master, you epitomized trouble for others, and therefore you were called Ravan. But now that you have been defeated, we also are defeated, for without you the state of Lanka has been conquered by the enemy. To whom will it go for shelter? Purport. Ravan's wife Mandodari and other wives knew very well how cruel a person Ravan was. The very word Ravan means one who causes crying for others. Ravan continuously caused trouble for others, but when his sinful activities culminated in giving trouble to Sitadevi, he was killed by Lord Ramchandra. Verse 27. O greatly fortunate one, you came under the influence of lusty desires, and therefore you could not understand the influence of Mother Sita. Now because of her curse, you have been reduced to this state, having been killed by Lord Ramchandra. Purport. Not only was Mother Sita powerful, but any woman who follows in the footsteps of Mother Sita can also become similarly powerful. There are many instances of this in the history of Vedic literature. Whenever we find a description of ideal chaste women, Mother Sita is among them. Mandodari, the wife of Ravan, was also very chaste. Similarly, Draupadi was one of the 5 exalted chaste women. As a man must follow great personalities like Brahma and Narad, a woman must follow the path of such ideal women as Sita, Mandodari and Draupadi. By staying chaste and faithful to her husband, a woman enriches herself with supernatural power. It is a moral principle that one should not be influenced by lusty desires for another's wife. Matravat para dareshu. An intelligent person must look upon another's wife as being like his mother. This is a moral injunction from Chanakya Shloka number 10. Matravat para dareshu paradravyeshu loshtravat atmavat sarvabhuteshu yah pashyati sapanditah. One who considers another's wife as his mother, another's possessions as a lump of dirt, and treats all other living beings as he would himself, is considered to be learned. Thus Ravan was condemned not only by Lord Ramchandra but even by his own wife Mandodari, because she was a chaste woman. She knew the power of another chaste woman, especially such a wife as Mother Sitadevi. Translation: O displeasure of the Rakshas dynasty, because of you the state of Lanka and also we ourselves have no protector. By your deeds you have made your body fit to be eaten by vultures and your soul fit to go to hell. One who follows the path of Ravan is condemned in two ways. His body is fit to be eaten by dogs and vultures, and the soul goes to hell, as stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verse 19. Tan aham dvishtah kruran samasaresu naradhaman kshipami ajasram ashubhan asurishva eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among the men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. Thus the destination of godless atheists such as Ravan, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa and Dantavakra is a hellish condition of life. Mandodari, the wife of Ravan, could understand all this because she was a chaste woman. Although lamenting for the death of her husband, she knew that what would happen to his body and soul. For although one cannot see directly with one's material eyes, one can see with the eyes of knowledge. Pashyanti Jnana Chakshushaha. In Vedic history, there are many instances of how one becomes godless and is condemned by the laws of nature. So we'll continue next time reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, the Pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. We have covered so far up to verses 28, the translations and the purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Tomorrow we will, next time we'll try to finish this chapter, and then we'll go through the chapter 10 as well, which is Lord Ramchandra rules the world. It has got lesser number of verses than chapter 9, and there are few verses in chapter 12. The title of that chapter is The Dynasty of Kush. So thank you for joining. Wish you all a very happy Ram Navami for tomorrow, and also today was the Durgashtami. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.